To play even more with the way the speed works with this animation, we'll use what's called the graph editor. The graph editor button right here opens up what's called the graph editor. Obvious, Phil, duh, right? But we don't see anything down here. Let me just extend this panel, the timeline, so we can see a little bit more. We don't see anything, and that's because we have to choose our keyframes that we want to view on the graph editor first. You can also do it later, but with these selected and then clicking the graph editor button, we see these lines. And these lines on this graph represent the speed of this value change. So for the position, you can see, and if I want to just highlight one of them, I can just choose that property over on the left-hand side. I can see that the position starts at 0 pixels per second, and you have the values on the left on the y-axis of the graph. And then it ramps up all the way to the middle where it's at 1000 pixels per second. So remember how I was talking about with easy ease, it ramps up, and without easy ease, it's sort of this linear, it's always moving at the same pace. If I check off of the graph editor, then I choose my position keyframes and then click click them to clear that easy ease, then go into the graph editor, you can see that the speed is this flat line right here. It just is always about, well, it says exactly what it is, 767.43 pixels per second for this entire animation. Let me undo that so we have our easy ease. This is the speed graph. If you don't see the speed graph, you might have to go to this button which says choose graph type and options and select speed graph because you might be on value graph. This is another graph that shows the value of your property. So over here you have it starting at 1308.19, and that's right here in our position. And then it goes down all the way to 540. There's lots you can do with the graph editor, but in this course we're mostly going to be looking at the speed graph. So how do we change up the speed? You'll notice that we have the keyframes down here, which when selected, they have these handles, these little yellow handles coming out from them. If we click on the yellow handle, you can see that I can drag it around. I can drag it up and down, but I don't necessarily want to do that. I just want to drag it to the right or left. And if I drag it to the right, what's happening? It creates more of a ramp. And so it starts out even slower than before. So for the first half second, it doesn't ramp up to speed as quickly as before when the handle was back here. So now we're ramping up the speed from 0. It's only going around 500 pixels per second at half a frame. And then it really spikes up to 2500 pixels per second. What does this look like? See that little pop at the end? So it kind of slows in and then it pops up at the end. Let's reverse this. So let's take this first handle and put it all the way to the left. And then we'll take this second handle for the second keyframe and drag to the left. So now it's going to go really fast and then really slowly go into its final resting spot. One thing I like to do to give it just a little bit more of a pop is grab the handles and drag them both in. So let's drag both these handles in. So now it's going to go all the way up to 5,000 pixels per second in the middle. And you can see this creates this sort of cool pop effect. And we can do this with the scale too, or with the rotation. So maybe we want most of the rotation to happen at the very end of this animation. Just select rotation, click on your keyframe down here in the graph editor to get those handles, and then drag to the right. So now there's not going to be much of a rotation here, but at the very end, there will be this fast rotation. Kind of cool, right? Or maybe you want it to be the opposite, but you can play around. So the graph editor is a cool way where you play with the speed of your animations. Now, if you've gotten this far and you're mostly comprehending what I am talking about, bravo to you. It took me years before I even started working with the graph editor. So you're learning things that professionals are using all of the time in their animations. And I wanted to just dive right into this topic because I want you to be making animations that look professional right now. A lot of newbies, when they're starting out with After Effects, they create these motion graphics and effects, but they look so simple, the motion doesn't look natural, and that's because they're not using things like Easy Ease or the graph editor. So I hope you feel proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. And in the next lesson, we are going to be creating a bouncing ball effect. So this is more of a real world application, putting everything that you've learned so far in this class, putting it together, and we're going to create that animation coming up right next.